Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Rose Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 220 subs. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, bowl season is right around the corner, and we got another bowl game to preview, the Fenway Bowl between the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Louisville Cardinal. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, Cincinnati's had a great season at 9-3 and 6-2 in the American Conference, and obviously it's not as good as their season they had last year where they made the college football playoff. They still had a great season, and Luke Fickell, unfortunately for them, their head coach, is now leaving to be the new Wisconsin head coach, and that hurt Cincinnati in this bowl game because of the fact he was a great coach and he's had them have a great season. But their new head coach is going to be Scott Satterfield, which is ironic because he was the former Louisville coach, and now you're playing Louisville in this bowl game. But Kerry Coombs is going to be coaching in the bowl game for Cincinnati, and he's their offensive coordinator, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out. But Cincinnati has had a great season under Luke Fickell. In week one, they lost at Arkansas 31-24. That's not a terrible loss because Arkansas is a decent SEC team. They beat Kennesaw State 63-10. Then they won at Miami, Ohio 38-17, and then they beat Indiana 45-24 at home. Then they won at Tulsa 31-21. They beat South Florida 28-24. That was a tough win there because South Florida is really struggling this season, but at least they pulled out the win. Then they won at SMU 29-27, and then they lost at UCF 25-21. That was a tough loss. Then they beat Navy 20-10. They beat East Carolina 27-25 at home. They won at Temple 23-3, and then they lost to Tulane 27-24 at home. That was a tough loss because that's their first home loss in over 3 years. So Cincinnati has had a great season, but they definitely did take a step back from last year when they went 12-0, and unfortunately for them, they lost so many players that they just did not have as good of a team this year. They still had a good season. And unfortunately for Cincinnati, quarterback Ben Bryant is injured, and he will not be playing in this bowl game. He's had a really solid season at quarterback for Cincinnati. Not as good as Desmond Ridder did last year for Cincinnati, but he still had a great season. But now quarterback Evan Prather, he's going to be playing in the bowl game for Cincinnati. He's 28-51 for 340 yards and an interception this season and 196 rushing yards and a touchdown. The good thing for Cincinnati is that Evan Prather is a dual-threat quarterback. They brought him in all season to run the ball in certain plays because Ben Bryant was more of a pocket quarterback. But at least Evan Prather has that mobile ability, so I think that will help Cincinnati out in this bowl game. Running back Charles McClellan had 140 attempts for 834 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 13 receptions for 117 yards. He's a solid running back. He's had a pretty good season. Again, Charles McClellan was not as good as Jerome Ford was last year at running back, but he still has had a great season for Cincinnati. Wide receiver Tyler Scott had 54 receptions for 899 yards and 9 touchdowns, and wide receiver Trey Tucker 52 receptions for 672 yards and 3 touchdowns for Cincinnati. Both are fantastic wide receivers. Cincinnati's not going to have their tight end Josh Wiley, though. He's an opt-out for the draft. That hurts, but Cincinnati does have every other player on offense, and Cincinnati's offense has had a great season. Even though they're not going to have Ben Bryant in this bowl game, I still think Evan Prather's dual threat ability will be able to help Cincinnati out in this game. And on the defense side of the ball, linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. at 119 total tackles, 47 solo tackles, 8 sacks, and a forced fumble. And safety Javon Hicks is 60 total tackles, 24 solo tackles, and 2 sacks. And Cincinnati's played well on both sides of the ball all season, and I think they're going to show up to play in this bowl game, even though their head coach is now at Wisconsin. Now, on the Louisville side, they're 7-5 and 4-4 in the ACC this season, and they're having the same head coaching problems as Cincinnati because Scott Satterfield, their head coach, left for Cincinnati, which is, again, so ironic. And their new head coach is going to be Jeff Brom, the Purdue coach, who's now going back to his alma mater. But like with Scott Satterfield, Jeff Brom, neither coach is going to be coaching this game because they're new head coaches. And Deion Branch is going to be coaching the bowl game for Louisville. I think that's going to help out Louisville because I think Deion Branch is going to be able to get the team fired up. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Louisville plays without their head coach as well. And Louisville's had a decent season. They started out the season disastrously, though, with a 31-7 loss at Syracuse. That was a bad loss. But then they bounced back and won at UCF 20-14. That was a good win. Then they lost a heartbreaker to Florida State 35-31. Then they beat South Florida 41-3. Then they lost at Boston College 34-33. That was a bad loss. But then they won at Virginia 34-17. And they beat Pittsburgh 24-10 at home. That was a good win. Then they beat Wake Forest at home 48-21. Then they won against James Madison 34-10. Then they lost at Clemson 31-16. Then they beat NC State 25-10. And then they lost at their rivals, the Kentucky Wildcats 26-13. So Louisville's had an up and down season, but they have played well at times, but they've also had some bad games as well. But unfortunately for Louisville, their star quarterback Malik Cunningham is opting out. He will not play in win this bowl game, and he is declaring for the draft. That is really tough because of the fact he's a fantastic quarterback, and he's basically kind of like Lamar Jackson was a few years ago. He's been the Louisville offense for the most part, running the ball, throwing the ball, and it's going to really hurt Louisville not having him in this bowl game. Quarterback Brock Doman, though, he's going to be playing in this bowl game. He's 66 of 123 for 866 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and 64 yards, and a rushing touchdown. I think he's a decent quarterback. He has thrown more picks than touchdowns, which is not very good. He does have a little bit of a rushing game, but he's not Malik Cunningham on the dual threat ability. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he plays. But if he does play well and does not turn the ball over, Louisville can win this game. Running back Jordan at 133 attempts for 700 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 74 receiving yards. He's a solid running back. He's had a pretty decent season for Louisville, but I don't think he's been utilized as much as he could have been with Malik Cunningham running the ball so much from the quarterback position. But I think Jordan's had a good season at running back. Wide receiver Tyler Hudson has 69 receptions for 1,034 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a great wide receiver. He's had a great season for Louisville. And tight end Marshawn Ford has 31 receptions for 421 yards and 2 touchdowns. Louisville has a good offense, but it's going to be very interesting to see how well Louisville plays in this bowl game without Malik Cunningham. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Moma Sanogo had 86 total tackles, 43 solo tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. And cornerback Jarvis Brownlee has 62 total tackles, 48 solo tackles, and 2 interceptions. Louisville has a really good defense as well. Same thing as Cincinnati. Louisville's defense has helped Louisville win some games when their offense was struggling a little bit. So I think Louisville's defense will show up to play in this bowl game even without their head coach, but it's going to be interesting to see how well they play. So who do I think is going to win the Fenway Bowl? This game has intrigue all over the place because of the fact both Louisville and Cincinnati do not have their head coach. Again, Louisville's head coach is going to Cincinnati, which makes it even more interesting because of the irony there. Both quarterbacks are out for both teams. Ben Bryant, he's injured for Cincinnati, and quarterback Malik Cunningham has opted out for the draft for Louisville. So that's interesting. Both teams are having backup quarterbacks. But the good thing for both these teams is they also have a few transfers, but most of them are not significant players, so that's not going to really hurt either team. But Louisville and Cincinnati both have a great defense. Both defenses are fantastic. The difference in this game could be that Cincinnati's backup quarterback is a runner, Evan Prather, while Louisville's backup quarterback, Brock Doman, doesn't run as much. Both teams are fantastic on run defense, so you could say that could play into Louisville's hands. But Louisville's pass defense isn't as good as Cincinnati's pass defense, and with Cincinnati having a running quarterback, they might be able to create some easy play action passes for them because they're going to be trying to run the ball so much that could hurt Louisville's defense a little bit. But both teams are fantastic on defense, but it's really going to just come down to which offense plays better with both quarterbacks being out of this game for different reasons, and which team shows up to play, because both teams have interim coaches right now just for this bowl game. They're trying to get acclimated to their new head coaches. There's turmoil everywhere with that, and again, whichever team comes out to play harder is going to win this game. But I think Cincinnati has a little bit more firepower on both sides of the ball still, even though their starting quarterback Ben Bryant is injured. I think that Evan Prather will be able to come in and do enough on the ground game and maybe enough in the passing game to help Cincinnati win in this bowl game, and I think Cincinnati's defense will play great as well. I think Louisville will play well too. They got a great defense as well. But I think Louisville's going to miss Malik Cunningham more than Cincinnati's going to miss Ben Bryant. I think Louisville's going to be able to still play well in this game with Brock Doman at quarterback, but he does not have the ability that Malik Cunningham does. And I think Cincinnati's going to beat Louisville 28-24 in the Fenway Bowl. This game could go either way. I think Louisville can win this game. Again, their defense is really good, and so is Cincinnati's. So it's really a tie game there, and I think both offenses are going to play well even without their starting quarterbacks. But I think Cincinnati just has a little bit more explosiveness still on offense and on defense. And again, whichever team shows up to play more is going to win this game. But I just think Cincinnati is a little bit more on both sides of the ball, and I think Cincinnati is going to really want to win this game. I think Louisville is going to play hard too, but I just think Louisville is going to fall just a little bit short. And I got Cincinnati beating Louisville in the Fenway Bowl 28-24. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Cincinnati or Louisville will win the Fenway Bowl and why. And I will see you next time.